All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Psychic Academy class. So this morning we're going to be talking all about remote viewing. So again, as a lot of people aren't here today, this recording is going to be spent. I'm getting like brain farts this morning. Okay. As we're starting this class this morning, everybody who hasn't attended will also be getting an archived recording of this presentation today. So we're going to firstly start with remote viewing. Today is going to be all about that. Tomorrow we'll be looking into more about self-empowerment and connecting, in regards to bonds, forming energetic bonds, a lot of particular forms of connecting and even some healing as well. And then on Monday we have a community class, and we'll be doing some readings, and again, more additional healing on top of that also. All right, so good morning to the circle. Oh, wow, Patty popped off again. Okay. Oh, good morning, Celissa, and good morning, Gail.
Good morning.
All right, great. So hopefully Patty will pop back on. Hopefully her internet is okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. What is remote viewing? Well, remote viewing is basically a militarized term. It was actually created by the military, unfortunately. It was basically looked at in the idea that it was actually psychic perception from the start, that the military attempted to hire a lot of different psychics for their own collaboration, and they would try and get psychics to provide perceptions relating to certain forms of events or people, etc. And what they were discovering is that the psychics that they were hiring weren't consistent with their particular energies. But again, the military didn't really understand in that sense about the observational perspective, kind of like the quantum mechanics. So what they wanted to do was create a whole new program that to them referred to as remote viewing. So, hey Patty, you're back. Okay, good. But anyways, a militarized program called remote viewing. So remote viewing basically just represents a different form from psychic ability. So if we're looking at remote viewing here, the difference between psychic perception and RV, which is remote viewing, psychics use feeling. We use emotion to perceive what it is that we're seeing. Remote viewing doesn't do anything like that. Remote viewing is purely, I guess you could say, it's not so much in the idea of them being analytical, it's more so in the idea of being observational. They are data collectors. So basically what that means is that you can't do any of this in remote viewing. You can't be of a feeling nature, you can't show any kind of emotion, you can't have any kind of over-analysis. So you can't be analytical when you're going into the remote viewing state, so to speak. You have to make sure that you're staying in structure. Okay, so this is basically what I call SIS, what the military refers to as staying in structure. Now I learned remote viewing back in early 2010, and the very first one I learned was technical remote viewing. There's quite a few different types of remote viewing. There's standard remote viewing that was actually developed firstly by the Monroe Institute and then became militarized. And then there was technical remote viewing that I looked at, and coordinated remote viewing, which is very similar, and then predictive remote viewing. So again, they're all just different types of remote viewing aspects, but they all follow the same column of tasks, of perceptions in that particular way. So if you were to create a remote viewing session, what would it look like? Well, you'd basically be in a complete blank room, a room that is just like a little square like this, where you'd only have a desk. You'd only have a desk right here. Okay, somebody is beeping me. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's see who's beeping me. Okay, Patty's just saying she's having technical difficulties. Okay, well, Patty, sorry you might have to wait to the recording. So, but anyways, basically you just have to go inside a room where it's completely blank. There's no posters on the wall or anything like that. You basically just have a table, you'd have a chair, and you would have a folder. And in this folder would basically just be a reference number. So there would be a little tab on the folder here, little folder, and you would basically have 3143. All right, that's it. This is basically what's known as having a folder that has a blind target in it. Okay? they refer to their perceptions as targets. Now, I'm not really going to go too much into the militarized version of it and stuff like that, but I'm just going to give you guys a bit of an education with it so that you can become familiar with it. There are actually courses out there that relate to a lot of what I'm talking about here, related with technical remote viewing and all that. But I'm just going to give you guys the basics so that you can really just be able to play with this a little bit more. We're also going to see how this blends together with psychic ability and remote viewing as well. Okay, so Patty, I got your message. Patty, do you have another computer you can go onto? That might be better. Or maybe another device. Maybe that just might help you. I just might not be able to help you if you're tuning in and out. That's okay. You'll still have the recording to go back into. Okay, so again, the folder here with the 3143. This again represents the reference number, and it would represent what's known as a blind target. So basically what you would do in remote viewing is when you first start out, you can be somewhat aware about what it is that you're targeting or what you're actually looking at in regards to a person, place, event, or thing. So you can actually go into a target and the person will say, okay, I want you to look at this person, in this country in this very moment. So they may show you a picture of the person, they may tell you the country, or they may tell you the address. And so they just say, okay, go on there right now and remote view him, right? You can do that, right? You can go ahead and say, in this moment, okay, let's say his name is Bob Jack. Okay, he's in Vancouver, BC, Canada. Here's his address, 123 First Street. His apartment, everything. Okay, so they give you all that information about him, and basically they'd sit you down at the table and say, I want you to remote view him right now. So in remote viewing, we want to discover exactly the data that is collected through what is known as the collective unconscious. That's basically what they refer to it as. It's otherwise known as the Akashic Records, the Matrix, etc. But they refer to it as the collective unconscious. And so this is basically just the format about what one person would do to connect with it. So you'd be observational, you are data collecting, you're staying in structure, you have targets, and you're looking into that particular energy. Now, in regards to more so the philosophy of remote viewing, again, it functions together with the collective unconscious. So let's see you here. Let's see if I can clear some of this up and get some more room on the board. So it works with the collective unconscious, and they're basically telling you that they want instantaneous data that comes through. So you're basically clearing your mind. This is why you're in a blank room, a room that has no particular distractions within it, and you're completely centered, and you're feeling that complete centeredness. And you're just getting instantaneous knowing through the idea of accessing the collective unconscious. Now, we all have the ability to do this. This is kind of like riding a bike. First few times you may not get it so well, but as you start to continue to develop it, you'll start to understand it pretty well. But basically, by going into the collective unconscious, you're again just picking up information instantly. So if we were looking back at that sample target with Bob, and if I was basically remote viewing him, that here is a reference number 13123. Black shirt, black hair. I'm seeing him sitting on a couch. It's a television present. And I think he's talking on the phone. Okay, so basically what I've done here is just give an example, so it's a bit of chicken scratch here, but black shirt, black hair, couch, television, talking on phone. All right, so that's a simple remote viewing. Now, if I was actually doing technical remote viewing, they would probably scrutinize me for this. Oh, you think he's talking on a phone? Okay. Well, that's known as an analytical overlay, and we would throw that in the garbage. Basically, what they do is they want you to sound like a robot. You basically have to be very, very mechanical. You can't say, oh, I think he's talking on a phone. You actually have to describe what they're holding. White rectangle, that would represent a phone, plastic, something like that. giving very, very specific data information relating to that. And again, this is why I'm not too big of a fan with remote viewing in regards to its militarized version. Now, in regards to what I just did here, this would be looking more so at the idea of the Monroe Institute type of remote viewing, that they were actually okay with not being so strict in regards to that. They actually allowed certain forms of imagination to come through a little bit if it was to describe certain accuracies relating to what you were receiving. In technical remote viewing, they would hate all this. It's crap, 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 crap. So because they want to make sure that everything is completely observational, completely mechanized. Right? So again, that's why it gets pretty bland with the idea of remote viewing. What I really enjoyed about remote viewing, though, is the instantaneity of it. Is actually just being able to stay in structure, keep yourself together in the moment, and allowing yourself to describe these remote perceptions altogether. So again, you access the collective unconscious. So this is basically just all unconscious data that our minds aren't able to pick up. So if we're looking at an example here, that this circle here would represent the entirety of our collective unconscious. And this tiny bitty little dot right here, that would actually be a small circle within itself, would represent our conscious self. All right, and so you could also say that this small little area here, again, another small little circle, would represent our subconscious. Okay, so we're basically attempting to access all this enormous, vast, incredible, infinite information that is being relayed into the subconscious and being fed into the conscious self. So it's basically, again, kind of like channeling, but they don't want to refer to it in the idea of psychic ability. They don't want to refer to it in the type of channeling, etc., even though it is that, really, in certain ways. But again, they wanted to develop this because they felt the psychics were being unreliable. They weren't being consistent enough relating to a lot of the information. Sorry, Patty, I can hear you. Patty, did you say something? Okay, I'm not too sure. I heard Patty there for a second. So let's make sure you guys are on mute. It looks like Patty's on mute. So okay, that was strange. All right, let me go back to what I was saying. So basically, again, we're accessing the collective unconscious. So when you are basically in that state and you are not allowing thought to enter. So again, thought takes about 2 to 3 seconds to enter our mind on average. So because we have that 2 to 3 second form of where thought itself, we're thinking about something and all of a sudden the thought creates or thought propagates within our mind. They basically want you to have something within your flow within about 0 to 1.5 seconds. Okay? So this is basically the time frame you have to connect with the collective unconscious and start retrieving data. So again, that's the whole nature of remote viewing, is that you're accessing the collective unconscious in a very unconscious, subconscious state. So again, you're allowing all this information to be pulled into your conscious awareness. And that's basically how it works. So that's basically the remote viewing philosophy. You're accessing the collective unconscious. Again, they too refer to it as the matrix or the Akashic records. They do understand that all is one. They do understand that everything is now and that you're able to access this. So it is a lot of what we have been talking about in regards to psychic perception. In all honesty, the remote viewing is not much different from, again, intuitive ability, psychic ability, etc. But again, it does take some time to develop remote viewing. The more that you can just continue to practice this, the more that this will start to make a lot more sense to you. Again, with remote viewing, one of the biggest essences that I just like to blend in with everything that we're doing here relating to your intuitive ability is that instantaneous perception. This is why I've shared that. Give yourself a moment to clear and then go, right? And go. So when you're actually scanning a person, you're giving yourself a moment or two to center yourself, to clear yourself, and then bam, you go, right? It's not so much in the idea that you need long pauses, because here's the thing. With psychic perception, if you start to feel that, okay, I balanced myself, now I'm going to go ahead and tap into that person, what you're doing is you're allowing thoughts to actually come in and actually create a lot of distortion within your mind as well. It doesn't always happen, but it certainly can. So the whole idea is it's kind of like looking at your crown chakra here. And as soon as you start to center yourself, as soon as you start to come into center, now this fine beam of light is just starting to come into your mind. As soon as that beam of light, in that way of imagery, is starting to come through, bam, you're on, you go, right? This is what I like about remote viewing, is because as soon as you're in structure, you're ready to go. You're ready to run with it. You're ready to actually, perform the target or perform the subject. Again, I don't like using the word target, but that's just basically their own reference of what they call it. So again, this is, the philosophy pertaining to remote viewing. So in a summary, I'm just going to go ahead and clear this off. In a summary relating to remote viewing, what can we review here? Okay, so remote viewing is collective unconscious retrieving. Okay. RV uses targets as subjects. So basically representing a person, place, event, or thing. Okay. RV requires complete observation. Okay. So this is really how remote viewing will operate, and what we're going to do right now is I'll just give you guys a bit of a remote viewing demonstration to how this operates as well. So let's just say, for example, I did have a folder here, so I'm just basically drawing a little folder here for the moment, so I don't have a folder on it. And now if we're looking at the folder and that something is contained inside the folder, this is basically a blind target example. So again, I have the reference number here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's take a look at the reference number first. Is there a big significance to the reference number? Is there a reason it's this number? No, not really. It's a made-up number. It really doesn't matter. It's just like a tag. It's a beacon. It's an anchor that we're basically telling the collective unconscious, or the matrix, the Akashic records, that 1, 2, 3, 4 is the data that we're going to be looking into this folder. So it's us basically attempting to create a subconscious anchor so that we can retrieve all the data that's included inside this folder. Okay. So if we were to have a worksheet that would be right next to the folder. Okay. So we have the folder here. We have the worksheet. Here's basically all that would be on the worksheet. Then we have a square here. And this is what's known as an ideogram, which I'll be getting into in a moment. This line here would just represent your name. This line here would represent your date. And this line here would be the time. Okay. So name, date, time. So NDT. Okay. Down here would be the reference number. This is where you would input the reference number. Okay. This would basically cut the paper in half here. And down below would be all the data that you would put in regards to what you're remote viewing with 1, 2, 3, 4. So that if, say, for example, there was a picture of a location that was inside this folder, and I didn't know what it was, then I'm basically going through this entire process to provide data relating to what is being shared in this folder. Okay. So I put my name, I put my date, I put my time. And now what I would do is I would put down the reference number, and I would create what's known as an ideogram. Well, what's an ideogram? Ideogram is basically very similar to what we have been doing here with matrix algorithms, connecting in that particular way. It's a subconscious permission slip. It's something that we're actually creating that would be kind of like a zip file for the collective unconscious, or for the matrix, or for the Akashic records. So we're basically doing this as a trigger effect. We're triggering that information. We're opening up that archive, and now all that information is coming through. So again, this is basically how I was able to develop the matrix algorithm. So when I'm scanning a person's body here energetically, I have a picture of them right here, right? And I'm creating that. And within a second and a half, that is completed. So this is basically giving me the idea of an ideogram. And I can actually look into this person's body and start getting information from what I can perceive. I say, okay, it feels like they got a sore throat, feels like they have a headache, feels like their legs are a little bit sore, They got a problem with their right knee, I feel, right? So I'm getting all this information, all this data from this algorithm, from this particular ideogram. The same thing applies relating to remote viewing. So when you're actually writing down the reference number, 1, 2, 3, 4, as soon as you're finished writing down the reference number, you hop right over to the square here, and you create that ideogram. So if I was to go 1, 2, 3, 4 here, okay, that's it. That's the ideogram. That only took a quarter of a second to create. Once I've done that, now I'm going to unlock this information. Okay, I'm saying tall, metallic, long, silver, blue, vast, strong, etc. Okay, so I'm listing all this information that I'm receiving from the collective unconscious relating to whatever I feel is contained within this folder. I'm not thinking about what's in the folder. I'm just letting the words come through in that way. So it's very much similar to what we've been doing Akashic, that we have the information and we're just starting to jot down the information here. There really is no difference other than the idea of actually allowing feeling to come in the way, so to speak. Okay, I am getting some sort of feedback. Patty, I think I can hear you in the background. I'm not sure. I think. Just make sure there's no other. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, anyways, coming back to where I was saying, is that there's really no difference between the Akashic records and remote viewing itself. So basically just representing the idea that you're allowed to bring in feeling and that you're allowed to bring in certain levels of perception, okay? So if I was describing this tall, metallic, long, silver, blue, vast, strong, and then I'm all finished, okay, then I basically wrap that up. At the bottom of the page, now I would be able to be analytical. Now I would be able to allow my thoughts to come through. So it's kind of like we're looking at the page here in 3 different areas. So we have the introductory information, we have the ideogram, then we have the data being collected here, and at the very bottom we would have our analysis, we would have our summary. Okay. So basically I would say, well, tall, metallic, long, silver, blue, vast, strong, what I was able to sense within my vision was looking at the Eiffel Tower. Okay. Then I would open up the folder, oh, it's the Eiffel Tower, right? So tall, metallic, long, silver, blue sky, representing that vast range, so a very long shot, strong, representing the foundation, etc. I could go on and on and on with all this information, and basically we would just summarize it. We would put our signature, we would put the time of completion, then we would be able to do our analysis after that. That's remote viewing. Okay, that's basically the entire concept of it. Now this basically, in this particular version, would be technical remote viewing in a certain way. Okay, so they basically have a rule within technical remote viewing of what's known as analytical overlay. Okay, this is where if you start to bring imagination or your own psychic perception into it, it's basically being thrown in the garbage. Okay, so if you're saying, oh, okay, it feels like the Eiffel Tower, but if I was to say that right away, that would basically go into what's known as analytical overlay. It would be this little side area of the page that would kind of be like a trash can. And they would say anything relating to, you know, imagination that creeps up or any particular type of vision that creeps up, they would want you to throw that in garbage. I know it's pretty stupid, but that's their law. So if I was to say Eiffel Tower, ET, then basically I would have to put that into the analytical overlay column, saying that this is imagination, this is what was cropped up, right? They don't want you to do that. They don't want you to have any kind of vision, any kind of particular type of psychic perception, nothing imaginative or nothing overly analytical that comes into the structure of being able to do the remote viewing itself. You have to be completely blank, completely in a state of being like a robot, so to speak. So again, that's technical remote viewing. That's its own particular motto, so to speak. But that's going into their particular criteria. What we're going to kind of look into now is that you kind of saw a bit of a demonstration. Is I'm going to show you exactly the blended way of doing a good remote viewing in Psychic Academy style. So this means that we will be able to invite in feeling. We will be able to invite in imagination. as that's important. So, a lot of remote viewers would be pissed at me for saying that. Right? Oh, what the hell are you talking about? That's not remote viewing. Oh, it's psychic perception. Oh, you know, they'd be throwing pitchforks at me right now for saying that. So, if we're looking at the idea of a refined remote viewing demonstration, okay, we would still have a folder and we would still have a worksheet. Okay. So what I'm going to do for, today is, after this is done, I'll give you guys the information that you need just to create your own template. It's very, very simple. It's not rocket science. And you guys will also be able to do some homework tonight relating to remote viewing. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. I'll even tell Khalil that he can probably hold some remote viewing sessions, David and Khalil. So Alyssa, you're also a teacher's assistant now as well too, so if you want to hold this, you're welcome to as well. But it is very, very simple. It's just to work on the worksheets. Khalil wouldn't basically be teaching anything about remote viewing. He would just remind you guys to do the homework, and you guys can do it together in class if you want to do that. We can also work more on this in Monday's class as well. So, remote viewing.
And Brad?
Yeah.
Would you please send this video to us too, because I've only actually been here the last 3 minutes. My connection's been horrible.
Everybody's getting a copy of this video, so don't worry.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
That's okay, no problem. Okay, so the refined remote viewing perception. So again, we have a folder, we have the worksheet, etc. And basically all we're doing with remote viewing is that we would do it no differently than we have done the Akashic Records, right? Okay, so if I say I want to go ahead and create a subject, I'm not going to say target, I'm going to say subject instead. So again, here's 4, 3, 2, 1, okay? Then I have my worksheet over here. Okay, then I have my little box here for my ideogram, my name, my date, my time, my reference number right here. Okay, then we have a little line. This would be the information column. Oh my goodness, there's no analytical overlay slot. No, there isn't, because that's stupid, in my own opinion, anyways. Then we would go down to, again, the summary down below here. Okay, so we would basically use kind of like the old-fashioned Monroe Institute version of remote viewing, and I actually researched the Monroe Institute remote viewing, and theirs is so much better, in my opinion, than a lot of the remote viewing that's out there today that was formerly militarized. The military are just, they're uptight with these things, right? And so they look at everything has to be protocol, everything has to be procedure, everything has to be structure. They put this vase, and containing everything that represents consciousness, directly into their own forms of perceptions. You guys have to take another glass of water. Jeez, I hope my voice isn't this bad for a webinar later. It's bad. Okay. So that's basically why I don't really care too much for the militarized version, but I want to give you guys a very clear perspective about how it operates, about what it's all, what it all entails, per se, just so you guys can understand depth, right? I'm not suggesting at all you guys have to go into the militarized way and all that. In my opinion, again, my own particular opinion here, if you're going into militarized remote viewing, you are limiting yourself majorly. Like there's just no room for expansion. Everything is all tight quarters. It's like, you have these little generals that are just kind of like watching over, oh, what'd you do there? That's basically what it is they're attempting to have, Mr. Invisible General over your shoulder and looking at things. Hey, analytical overlay, here, do this, blah, blah, blah. Oh, sorry, sir, right? That's the remote viewing militarized way. Now, if we're looking at the idea of the remote viewing open way, the refined version, let's say again that it still represents the idea of the Eiffel Tower in here. Okay, so again, I put my name, I put my date, I put my time to where I'm beginning the remote viewing, and now I'm putting the reference number 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now I'm starting to get visions. Okay, well, I'm seeing a cloudy sky with some blue there, etc. Okay, I'm starting to see a very long structure, so I would just basically write all this out. I'm seeing a very long structure. I'm seeing rivets of metal in between it coming together. There's a lot of people that are surrounding it. They're kind of walking down by a sidewalk. This thing stands very, very tall. I'm thinking it's well over a couple hundred feet. I'm just getting a feeling of cool air, a cool windy breeze that's coming through. So I'm describing all this stuff. And again, if it was remote viewing, militarized, analytical overlay, right? But not through here. This is through, again, the refined version. So you're just tapping into this and you're letting your conscious self speak, but you're getting all of this instantaneously. So it's basically the point to where you feel that if you're spending a long time, like 5-10 seconds pass, you're like, there's rocks. Okay, that would be something that I would probably discount. I would slash and say, no, I put way too much thought into that. Okay, so basically what I would do is if I get a freeze point, which can be known, if I'm getting a freeze point in my flow and I'm just like kinked up and I'm not getting anything for 5 to 10 seconds, I would stop. Okay, so I'd basically look back at everything that I did and I would stop here and I would just put my initials and that would be it. Right? The reason being is because we're compromised. We're just basically not in that particular type of alignment of being centered. Okay. Basically, what I would say is instead of saying stay in structure, I would say stay in center. That's the whole idea. Don't worry about structure. I'm not too concerned about structure, about analytical overlay and all that crap. It's more so on the idea of actually looking into, can I keep the flow going? And then when the flow stops, I put a line through, I put my initials, and I put the time to when it ended. Okay. That's great. That's a good type of remote viewing. And this does happen. We get brain farts. That happens. And all of a sudden we cut out from our flow and we don't feel centered. There's just a lot of other distractions. We're trying to think about what's in this folder rather than letting the folder tell us what's in it. Right? So when you're completely with the flow, when you're just, it takes a quarter of a second, bam, okay, I'm seeing blue skies and clouds. I'm seeing a very tall object, a lot of silver metallic, reflective light, etc. Seeing people moving by. Great, that's constant flow, and then all of a sudden, a long 5 or 10 second break. Okay, that's me telling myself I'm not centered, bam, and I just sign it and that's it. And I can always come back to it. So basically, if I was to come back to it, we would start a whole new worksheet again because this would be new data that would come together. Okay, that's the refined remote viewing way. So after you are done and you're able to get all this flow coming together, and you feel that the flow has basically ended itself, that's how you're going to tell that you're done the session. So it's not so much that you just fill the paper and you're done. You would have a second sheet of paper and you would keep writing. Okay, you keep writing and you keep dictating until you can't dictate anymore. So until you're out of center. Right? When you're out of center, you put a line through, you initialize, and then you put the end time. Okay, that's great. That's all you do. And so that would be the refined remote viewing process. After that's done, now you can go into analysis. Now you can look into that and say, okay, I have all of these pages worth of data that represented collective unconscious information or Akashic record information. And now I'm just writing down all this information that's coming together. Feels like the Eiffel Tower in France. Okay, open up the folder. Yes, it is. It's a long shot of the Eiffel Tower in France. Okay. Now again, as I said, this takes time to develop. It's kind of like what we have been doing with Akashic records, but I think all of us in class are able to get this pretty well, as we've really done some very, very amazing things relating to the Akashic records and relating to feelings of psychic perception as well. Okay. All right. So before we move on to the homework, are there any questions in regards to what has been shared here?
No.
Okay. Everybody's good? Okay. Okay, so homework for tonight is to reproduce everything here. So what I want you guys to do is work on 3 particular subjects, okay, not targets. So 3 particular subjects that we'll be talking about, or that you guys can just go ahead and create. That may be a hard thing because, again, you want to try and surprise yourself, right? So my recommendation is to actually team up with each other and get a person to send you. Actually, no, I'm not sure if that's even going to work either. I'm trying to find a way for you guys to kind of do a blind target. My recommendation might be like picture cards or something like that. Something that would do that. If you have a friend close by that maybe can give you like a picture or something like that that you don't know, that's a hard thing. It's trying to figure out exactly how I would do this to give you guys homework. The only best way I could suggest would be to do now moment subjects. So not so much in the idea of giving you guys pictures or anything like that, because that would defeat the purpose. So basically now moment subjects. So if I was asking you to tune into your friend right now, just to give a remote perception of maybe where a family member is right now, or your friend, etc., like that, and just describe their environment. You're not going into their soul or anything like that. you're mostly just describing their environment and in the best of your ability. So it's basically just a simple remote perception in the now moment of someone. Okay. Or you can even go into the past and actually remote view an event. Okay. So if it's John F. Kennedy's Man on the Moon speech, you know, or if it's the moon landing or whatever it is, right? That's fine, and you can go ahead and you can remote view that as well too. But basically, just 3 particular subjects that you would like to remote view. So maybe it's my mom, my dad, and I'll look into Martin Luther King's speech or something like that, right? That's fine. Just something that you can pick and get the idea of a remote perception with. Okay. So that's just something to do for homework over the next week. It's not due or anything like that. This is for your own personal accord. This is however you want to do it. But basically, again, I'm going to give kind of like a sample worksheet that you guys can use that should be with this recording when I send it out. And you guys can just go ahead and print out that worksheet and just utilize it in this particular way, okay? Because I can't really think of another way to really give you guys surprise targets as I'm here and you guys are there, right? So if you feel that there's a person that can actually set something up for you and say they have a folder and they have a picture, and they can pop it in the folder and say, here you go, here's something for you, that's great. I can't really do that from afar. So if you guys can figure out something like that, that's great. But just being able to give a subject on somebody who you know or an event past that you would like to remote view, that would be fine. Okay. All right. That's basically it. Any other questions? No. Okay. So Patty, it's just you and Celissa that's online. Okay. We're having internet problems galore here today. All right. Okay, guys. So that is remote viewing. This is basically the entire aspect of remote viewing. I'm just glad we were able to sum it up in about 45 minutes here. So again, just look into your homework, see how things go. We can also talk more about it in class tomorrow and also on class on Monday as well. So is there anything further? Does anybody else have anything they want to share or anything that they want to talk about before we wrap up the class today?
It's pretty clear. Thanks, Brad.
Okay. No, I mean like anything else. If there's anything else you guys want to talk about besides... Or you guys
We're pretty good.
We're pretty good. All right. Everybody's nice and clear. That's good. I wish the internet connections were just as clear. That's great. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for a great class. Again, sorry it's been such a short class today, but you guys will be getting your standard 2 hours for Gail and for Patty and for Celissa. You guys will get your 2 hours today together. And thank you so much for attending. And hope you guys see you guys tomorrow or Monday. So have a great day. Namaste. Much love. Talk to you soon.
Namaste. Bye-bye.